Welcome to the Berlin Drawing Room.
So, everybody, hi all, my name is G, they, them. I'm here to share with you a basic figure in pastel practice, and I'll address some principles of figure drawing, some principle of pastel drawing. I hope this can be a nice introduction to the technique if you haven't done it yet before, and a nice practice together if you're already familiar with the technique. You will find the reference picture for today in the Dropbox folder. I am now copying the link of the picture in the Dropbox folder, and I'm gonna both put the link to Dropbox in the chat and also the file, because I know that some laptops are, like some programs are a little bit iffy about Zoom links, so they don't show it to you. So one way or another, you should be able to get your reference picture there in the chat. Please let me know if anybody is having problems with it, but we should be okay. Okay, so I will have the chat open, but usually while I'm teaching, like I will look at it every once in a while, but sometimes I miss things. So be patient. If you ask me something in the chat, I will get to it as soon as I see it. And I will now turn the camera and we can start. So, as I said before, I'm gonna work on toned paper, and maybe I need to turn it the other way around. Yes. So I'm gonna work on toned paper just because it's, I prefer it as a base for pastel. And I'm going to use just 3 colors. So I'm gonna use medium brown, and then dark brown, and then a white highlight. These are all the colors that I'm gonna use. You don't have to use browns. You can use any very dark color and middle tone and white to do this exercise, and it's going to work. So don't worry about which colors you have. You just need 3 tones, a dark, a medium, and a white. I'll give you a minute just to grab your colors, and then we can start. Is it okay on if you're working on white paper, you can use yellow instead of white, maybe, or yeah, like whatever light highlight color you have, that's okay. Yeah, and again, you can use, I'm using traditional artistic pastels, so dry pastels, the dusty ones. If you have oil pastels, they're okay. If you have wax pastels, they're gonna be okay too. Like, as long as you have something that will vaguely attempt to blend within each other when we overlap it, it's gonna be okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the middle tone, and with the middle tone, the first thing that I'm gonna do is the structure and the base of the figure. One thing that I want to say now, the important thing is, yes, there is a reference. I'm gonna copy the link. 1 second. I'm gonna repost the link for you. And if it doesn't work with the link, let me know. I'll upload the picture again in the chat. So I was saying, one thing that I would like to say before we even start is that we're not trying to draw a perfect picture. we're trying to understand a technique so then we can use it to practice and do things again. So please try to be in the mindset of being kind with yourself and like focus more on the principle and understanding the principle rather than achieving an amazing result on paper, especially if it's the first time doing this technique for you, okay? Or, you know, just, we're gonna try to have fun, okay? So we're gonna start, and the first thing that we want to do is start with the structure of the figure. So I'm gonna start with the head, and then from the head, I'm gonna kind of mark the line of the body so I know where I want the body to go. And then I'm gonna mark the volume of the rib cage, and then from there, the volume of the hips, okay? And then we can start attaching things on top. So we have here the kind of like, we're kind of drawing like a ball joint, ball jointed doll. So here, then the elbow, and then the hand. There is another arm on the other side. We can mark the side of the face. We're not doing portraits, so we're not going to put that much detail in the face. Then we can mark the chest, the breast, and then here where the belly button is, get to the side. And then again, here we can first draw the thigh, then the knee, then the leg and the foot, which is like almost near the edge, and then the other leg, it's in foreshortening. So from here, look where the knee falls compared to the other knee, and just draw the length of the thigh in that direction, and then the other leg goes under. We're then gonna mark just a little bit the things that the person is leaning, that the figure is leaning on, so it doesn't float into space. And this is gonna be all I need at this point, just this very light structure. I'm not drawing the contours, I'm not drawing details. I'm just drawing a structure to know where the figure is before I start shaping it, okay? So I just need guidelines of where the figure is. So take your time. I'm gonna leave you 5 full minutes to do this step, and then we're gonna move on the next step, okay? If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. No, you can't erase pastels with regular erasers. What you can do if you want to change something is take some paper and just make it softer and then go over it again. But this is just a structure. We're going to cover everything that we do now. So don't worry about extra lines or things that are a little bit off. Again, don't worry about making it perfect. We're just trying to understand the technique. So if it's a little bit crooked or the proportions are a little bit off, it's going to be okay anyway, as long as you understand the process, so you can try to do it again. Okay. So next step. Now what we're going to do is we're going to wait, I lost the chat. So now the next thing that we're going to do is the shadows. So we're gonna start with the darkest shadows. So this picture is like pretty clear in the light and shadows department, so it shouldn't be too hard. And we're gonna start, so everything that is dark, we do dark, and now we can start shaping things. So again, don't do contours. We're not working with contours. The cool thing about using pastels to do studies is that they being very opaque and being very layerable, you can use them in a very painting-like way. So in paintings, you don't do contours and then color inside, okay? So you try to shape things, to sculpt things with color. So this is what we're trying to do today. So here I'm gonna start and I'm just gonna go with the hair in the darkest parts, which is not everywhere. There are some highlights on the hair. And then from here, so I work with the darkest parts, and then I'm gonna mark the dark where the eye is, where the tip of the nose is, and where the jawline and mouth is, just the shadow. I didn't draw the full contour. Then from here, there is a shadow on the neck that goes along to the arm in the background there. And then on this arm, we go here. There is a shadow on the underside of this arm, then here, then again on the underside, and then a little bit in the middle of the fingers there. And then from that point, I go, there is a shadow above the breast, and on the other side, and then this all side of the torso is in the shadow. So I'm just gonna focus on marking this shadow, this shape here. Then there is the belly button, and then again there is a shadow here on the belly. There is a small nick of a shadow here where the waist bends, and then from here on this side of the leg, I'm gonna do a shadow all the way down there, and then down on the edge, and then on the other side again, I'm just gonna do the shadow under the leg like this, and then here. I can now add shadows on the drapery and the rest of the elements. So I can place shadow here, and then maybe use the flat of the pastel just to fill in this darker area on the side. And then here, again, marking some shadows of the drapery, just so that the figure doesn't float in space. There is some drapery here between the legs that we can also mark lightly, and then more drapery somewhere there. So take your time. Again, 5 chill minutes so you can work on this. Since this is a dusty medium, recommendation for not getting your finger dust on the main page as you go from color to color, shape to shape. You can hold the pastel with some paper, like, you know, you can take your pastel or charcoal and hold it with paper, so you're not getting color on your fingers, and you're not, you know, doing that if you want. Tone paper is a softer contrast, but I think you can achieve a good result on any kind of, like, it's not necessary a tone paper work, because we're covering everything, so it's gonna work regardless of the color that you use. Yeah, you can also, so depending on how much, like right now I don't have much dust because I didn't put that much color. You can keep it tilted, as somebody is saying. Or what I usually do, if it's getting very dusty, I just take it and then bang it over my trash can, so the extra dust goes away before I go with more. But it depends how much pigment you're putting on paper. So yeah. I can't do it because I need to be flat under the camera, so it's not an option for me. Yeah, it is like pastel and charcoal, like dusty mediums require a little bit of, control on the environment for that reason. But I'm sure, it's gonna be okay. We're not doing a big drawing with a lot of color, so you shouldn't build up that much dust with what we're doing today. But yeah, it is a point of concern if you're working at home or in an environment where you have carpets or things that are more complicated to clean. Okay, so let's go to the next step. So now we're going on the opposite side. I'm going to use white. As we were saying before, if you are working on white paper, you can use yellow, you can use light pink, you can use light blue, you can use whatever light color you have. It should be quite light, so like light, bright. Wait, let me show you. Let's see, in my box, in my vintage box. But yeah, the idea is like either light yellow, light blue, or light gray, something quite light, okay? Because we need the contrast. So with this, I'm just gonna put it where the full highlights are. So I'm not filling in everything else. So again, I'm starting from the head. There is a tiny highlight on the nose, which is probably gonna disappear. And then here on the shoulder, the important thing that I would like for you to focus on is the shape of the shadows, the shape of the highlights. The more you are accurate with the shape of your lights and shadows, the more it will be easy to read the image after it's done. So please, like, don't just do lines, try to really put the attention in the shape of these highlights. And you can shape, see, with the outline, with the highlight now, I'm shaping the outline of the figure in this area. But again, we're not drawing mechanically contours, okay? So here, a little bit, maybe a little bit on the foot. And then we go here, there is an highlight under the belly button, and then on this part of the upper side of the leg, going here. And then we're gonna do the highlights of, what does it mean? My light is not layering over, so smudging the darker colors. It's supposed to smudge. They're supposed to blend together. Like if you can see here, maybe I can put it closer to the camera, but see, like my white here is blending with the red that I used for the structure. It is intended. I don't know what pastels you're using. Are you using this kind of dry pastels or oil pastels? Because that also affects the opacity. Dry pastel layer, of course, they layer in a more opaque way than oil pastels. Susan, I'm late, but I enjoy watching from this point. Will the recording available? The Berlin Drawing Room staff will then put the recording on YouTube. So if you are in the mailing list, you should receive information of that through them. I'm not doing it personally. I'm doing dry, but they are very inexpensive. They're probably they're lower pigment or maybe a little bit drier. Just go, like, you can layer how many times as you want. That's the cool thing about pastels. You can layer as much as you want. So just to finish this part of the demo, I'm gonna use the white also for the highlights here on the drapery. And again, I'm using the side so I can do these larger areas more easily, like this. And then here we have the drapery in between the legs, goes a little bit here over the foot, and then from here something there. Okay, so do your white highlights, and we're gonna do then the medium. And at the end, if something is off, I'll show you. You can go back and forth to keep shaping things. The cool thing about pastels is that you can rework it ad infinitum. Like, you can go over it as many times as you want, and that, I feel, takes a lot of pressure off on getting it right the first time in the way you will have to do. Like with watercolor, is so, for example, is a technique that is way less forgiving. Like, you need to kind of have an idea of what you're doing from the start. But with pastels, or with this kind of opaque techniques where you can layer the colors over each other, you can go, like, you can take that pressure off and just like layer with your pace, with your time, and that's gonna be okay. You can correct a lot. Yeah, the realism is the shape of the shadows and not using contours. The moment you draw a dark contour along a figure and then you fill it in, that representation will read more graphic, because in real life we don't have contour. There are no contour lines on my hand. So the moment you have a contour line and something inside, our eyes will read it as a graphic representation, so we perceive less realism. The other thing that gives the realism perception, because there aren't much details here, is the shape of the shadows. If we put the shadows in the right position and then we apply lights and midtones with the right contrast, our eyes will recognize that thing as more adjacent to how we perceive reality. That's how it works, basically. Shape of the shadows, tonal values, contrast. couple of minutes more, and then we move on to the midtones. Okay, so now we're gonna blend with the midtone. The cool thing that I like about pastels, and the common misconception, is that people think that with pastel, you're supposed to blend them with your fingers, with each other, which I am, those of you here, which are my students, know how much against it I am, because on our fingers, we have the skin oils. And if you mix your skin oils with pigment, they're gonna oxidate, and then the color may change. I don't know. I don't think it's like an efficient way to do the job. So some artists use paper blenders, which look like paper, like rolled paper pencils, and you can use those to blend with each other. You can use Q-tips to blend colors with each other. I use other colors to blend colors with each other. That's the way I like to do it, and the way I'm going to show you. So that's why it's okay to layer and change the colors between them. So now with the midtone, I'm just gonna go and I'm basically gonna fill in where the midtones are. And for example, the face here in the back, it's all midtone. It's not light. It's a little bit more in the shadow compared to the rest. So I'm gonna work with my midtones. And again, don't worry, like nothing is final, nothing's gonna be the end of it. You can also go back with your dark color and like, you know, move certain things, like make certain things darker. And then here, the arm in the back also I will do with the midtone. And then I will use the midtone a little bit here to blend the transition between the dark tone and the light tone, like this. And then here under, see, there is light here, but I see that there is a little bit of midtone, so I'm gonna add it. And then here I can go back with the dark. I'm alternating the dark and the midtone. Like here, for example, maybe it's better if I put an extra highlight with the white over the midtone. And then here, I think it's good on the ribs. I can put an highlight there and then just blend with the midtone in between. So now it's when you kind of go a little bit back and forth between all the colors that we've been using to try to find the way to make it work and to blend them with each other when needed. And so, yeah, this is what we're doing now. We're doing this job of kind of pull everything together with the midtone. And if at this point you're building up a lot of dust, again, I suggest you can take the paper and just dust it over your trash can. That's the way that I usually do it, and that I'm also probably gonna do today as well. And then again, with the midtone, I can also go here on the drapery and blend the drapery also with my midtone. And then you can go back with the dark if there are certain parts that are a little bit darker. you can go over and put a little bit more contrast. Oops, more contrast in there. If the dark color that you have chosen, even when you go back and you push hard, you feel that it's not dark enough for certain shadow points and parts and details, you can take a darker color just for the shadow points. Wait, I'll show you. Like in my case, I think it works, but just to show you so you understand what I mean, if the color that you chose for the dark, you realize at the end that it's not dark enough, I'm taking the black, and you can use a darker color just for the shadow points, like the very small details that, like those very small darker shadows, like here, the underside, see this point here, the underside of the arm is quite darker, or like the belly button is quite darker, or like here, the skin fold, it's quite darker, or like here, the line where it touches the ground, the floor, whatever it is. So you can put a little bit extra oomph in your shadows with using the black, but don't exaggerate. Like if you chose your colors well at the start, that should be enough to give enough contrast with this tonal value. Let me just dust this off in my trash can, because there is a little bit of extra dust. Okay, so like this. There are some questions. Is there any brand of pastels that you could recommend? So my personal favorite brand of pastel, even if these two that I have here, one is a Conte and the other one is a very vintage Cretacolor box. The brand that I think is the good midpoint between softness, so not too dry, because these ones, the Conte, are very hard, like consistency wise, they're quite hard. I don't like them as pastels. Like they're efficient for this, but I don't like them. Is the Faber-Castell brand. The Faber-Castell brand as the good midpoint between price and softness and quality of pigment, etc. Of course, then there are the fancy pastels, like the pastels that have high quality pigments and they are so soft that it's like using eyeshadow. Like they're so creamy and crazy. Like the Sennelier pastel, the Rembrandt pastels, the Sennelier pastels are insane. Those were the pastels that the guy used to use, and they are incredible, but they are incredibly expensive as well. So, I think that a good mid-range, like a good starting point is the Faber-Castell ones. And then you have to experiment, because different people have different hands and different ways of working. And so something that may work for me may not work for you, and vice versa. Does the technique of pressure heavier application increase the tonal value with pastel? Yeah, you don't have that much range with pastels, especially if you want to saturate. I think pastel is more like paint. It behaves like paint. So if you want a darker color, you need a darker pigment. Unless you're doing a very sketchy lighting, then you can modulate with pressure. But no, if you want a darker, like as you can see here, the range of my dark color is from light application here to dark application there, but it's different saturation of paper. Ideally, when you work like traditional pastel technique, implies full saturation of paper, like it's a painting. Thank you, Cherry. So as I'm gonna leave you some minutes to finish, so then we can do a round of a final check-in. And if people are leaving already, I'm gonna drop I have it prepared now, all the links for the Berlin drawing room and my Instagram and everything, so they don't get lost. Additional question, what type of pastel are you using? I'm using wax pastel, but the white doesn't seem to cover it. Yes, because wax pastel, so this pastel, I'm using dry pastels or artistic pastels. That's the name usually. These are basically pigment kept together with Arabic gum and then a little bit of like extra medium pigment just to make them more dusty, but it's like pure pigment on paper. Wax is less opaque because the medium is wax, so they're more translucent. So there are different techniques that valorize more wax pastels as a medium. So it's normal if your white doesn't cover perfectly if you're using wax pastels. It's completely normal. I don't know if I have wax pastels nearby. Let me see. Look, I have the I don't even have the white here, but yeah, wax pastels. No, I don't have a white in wax pastels, so I can show you. But yeah, it's normal. Okay, good. Bye, Jojo. Have a nice day. Bye. Okay, I'm gonna give you some minutes because some people are still finishing up, and then we can do some feedback round, more questions. I'm always happy to answer your questions. Is it possible to only have used the mid-tone and darkest and leave the white paper white as the highlight and then blend? It's a different technique because, as I said before, there are many ways to use pastel. The technique that I use is the old masters traditional one, which implies saturating the paper with the like full saturation of the paper. If you're using the pastels in a more contemporary way, you can, of course, experiment with different layering and solutions, but this technique requires to saturate the paper. That's why I was suggesting to use a lighter color instead. But yeah,